Welcome back to In Between Cuisine. I'm Tony Hickman. And on this episode, I'm going to try and recreate a dish from one of my favorite local restaurants, Jack Allen's Kitchen. Very popular, uses all local farmers markets to get all their ingredients. And the thing that I order every time I go is the pork medallions, which is a chorizo stuffed pork tenderloin with a creamy garlic sauce. So, since I order that every time I go, I think I'm gonna try and recreate it. Am I gonna come close? Who could tell? Let's find out. Let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is roast our garlic for our roasted garlic sauce. So how we're gonna do that is you're gonna take the pointy end and you're gonna just slice right through this. And you wanna make sure you go deep enough to where all the garlic cloves inside are exposed, just like that. If you do it too shallow, they're gonna be still encased in their little case, and that won't be good for the process we're gonna do later. So go ahead and do this to the amount of garlic cloves that you have. I had 6, you could go anywhere from 5 to 6 for this. Once you have them cut, place them on some foil on a baking sheet, drizzle on some olive oil, and then we're just going to season this with some simple salt and pepper. Once you have it seasoned, we're going to make, like a little sloppy present here. You're just going to fold your corners in and then fold the other sides in. That way if it, steams and vents, it all goes out through the top. Don't want to put it too tight. And then we're going to put that in the oven for 370 degrees for 1 hour. Next, we're going to make our filling, which is going to be our chorizo. So we're just going to use one little package of chorizo. We're just going to slide this right out of the tube, just like that. And then we're just going to cook this over medium heat for 10 minutes, kind of like our sausage thing. You just want to, spin and stir. That way you're trying to break up some of those clunks. If you've never cooked chorizo before, this is just how it goes. So don't get too discouraged. The longer that this cooks, the easier this process is. It's very high in fat, so once you cook it, it will pretty much break up on its own. This is after only 5 minutes, and you can see I really didn't do too much stirring, and it just kind of broke up on its own. So you want to cook this chorizo for about 10 minutes. Once at 10 minutes, we're just going to go ahead and set this aside for now and start on our pork tenderloin. Now, pork tenderloin comes with what we call a silver skin. It's a little coating that's on some pork products. As you can see it right there, it's just a little thin coating that's kind of over the pork. So you don't want to cook with that. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't take it off, but it's definitely better chewing if you take it all off. So a lot of times with these tenderloins, you can pretty much just take this off with your hand. Just find the right crevices, pinch it, and just rip it right off of the skin. So make sure you go through all of this carefully and get as much as you can with your hands, because it just makes it that much easier. I mean, unless you have really good knife skills, which I don't, but I'll try to show you anyway. Very gently, just like butter, grab a pinch of it and lift it up, and don't use any force whatsoever, and gently glide your knife over the surface of the pork, and you should be able to get, if you have any stubborn silver skin, it should come right off doing that. Next, we're gonna butterfly this. So you wanna hold this down, and then you wanna very carefully slice right down the middle, as close to the middle as you can. And you don't want to go too far. Once you go too far, it's already game over and you'd have to start all over again. If you didn't go far enough, not the end of the world. Just very gently, using only the weight of the blade, cut down the middle. Don't put any pressure whatsoever, and then you'll cut it a little bit at a time until you get the good butterfly opening that you want. And for our stuffing, I like to keep it just a little thick because we're going to do a little pounding of the meat here. So next it's time for my nemesis, plastic wrap. Plastic wrap to me owns me every time I use it. It's kind of like Sideshow Bob when he runs into a rake. Just gets owned. So try your best to put the plastic wrap over your meat, because we're going to give this, a good pound and get it nice and thin. You want to double coat this, so once you get one, go ahead and grab another sheet and put that on there as well. So look at me fumbling around with this thing. I can never figure out plastic wrap. Once you got it covered, grab your mallet, grab the smooth side, and give this a good pounding. Don't want to pound it too much here, because again, if you accidentally punch through, it's game over and all your filling is going to fall out. But you do want to concentrate a little bit on the sides and get your sides thinner than the center part. And I'll show you why here in a second. After you're done, carefully grab it and flip this upside down, keeping it on the plastic wrap. Again, I'll show you why we do that here in a second as well. Try to get it smooth, and now it's time to add our filling. So grab your chorizo that you made earlier and put this right into the middle of your pork tenderloin. So you want to move this around so it's not really close to the edges, but concentrated more on the center, but spread out as best as that you can. Now you want to fold in your corners. This is why you wanted to keep that plastic wrap on. Fold in your corners and kind of pack it down, and this is what's going to help keep your center, the chorizo, into the pork tenderloin. So do your corners first, pack them down so they're nice and secure. And now we want to actually roll this up. So we're kind of like rolling a piece of sushi or something, like a burrito or something, but you want to use the plastic wrap and carefully and gently roll that together. And then once you have that piece over, then you can firmly roll that tight. And if you have any excess filling coming out, just remove it. Don't try to save it, just remove it, because then it'll just look ugly and it'll spill out everywhere. So remove that excess chorizo if you have it, put the plastic wrap back on, and then really firmly get that nice and tight and secure. Here's a little trick I learned. Once you have it like this, you want to go ahead and pinch the sides of your plastic wrap and roll it on your cutting board or whatever surface you're using to make this dish. What this is going to do is going to give it a nice extra tight little seal. But as you can see, the plastic wrap owned me again, and there's a little gap right there. And of course, it's on the most important part where, the opening is. But hey, it happens. It's still going to work. You should end up something like that, hopefully better. It pinches together very easily. So now I'm going to use some cooking string. These are a new product I just saw, and these are elastic cooking string. Instead of just doing regular cooking string, you have to cut it and tie it. These are just simple little elastic cooking strings. Double do them, and you will just do the ends first. That way no filling wants to come out, and then add 2 more to the center, trying to evenly space them out. Some people like to use toothpicks here. You could totally use toothpicks as well. I just don't have any toothpicks, so this is what I have. Up to you of what you want to use. But we just want to make sure it's nice and secure. If you're using the string, make sure that you're trying to get in evenly as possible all the way across. So I use 4 pieces here. Just like so. Try to pinch that little opening, the fold shut the best that you can. And now what we're going to do is going to give this some seasoning. So we're going to do this a simple season, which is just with some pepper and salt. So another little trick I learned, season one part of the pork and then season your cutting board. So you'll see why here in a second. So there's some pepper, going to add some salt, and then add some salt to your cutting board. So the pork tenderloin is round, And you might as well just roll it directly into the seasoning instead of trying to, move the pork side to side and season each side. Just season your board and roll your pork over the seasoning, and now you have a nicely even seasoned piece of pork. Now let's get this to searing. I'm going to use some avocado oil just because of the high smoke point, I should say. Once that is nice and heated, see the cut or the fold, I should say, where it's together. Do that one first. That way you can seal that off and you don't really have to worry about it as much. And then once that side's done, you're just going to flip it. See how nice and sealed it is. And then you're just going to keep on flipping it until all 4 sides are nice and seared. Now you want to try to time this right about the same time that your garlic has been roasting for about an hour. That way we can throw this pan directly into the oven because we're going to do it at the same temperature. And it just so happens that my garlic finished right on time. So I just took my garlic out of the oven. And now we're going to place our pork directly into the oven and let that cook in the oven for 375 degrees for about, 15 minutes or so, or until you reach an internal temperature of at least 155 degrees. Let's take a look at our roasted garlic. Carefully open this up. It really shouldn't be too hot, but look at that. It looks beautiful. That's exactly what we were going for. So it looks great, and now I'll show you a trick on how to get this out of there easily. Our pork tenderloin has been in the oven for about 15 minutes. We're going to go ahead and check the temperature here just to make sure we have the inside exactly how we want it, and it looks great. So now as this rests for about at least 10 minutes, we're going to go ahead and work on our roasted garlic sauce. So what you want to do is first you want to make a roux. And you've heard me tell this before. Roux is nothing but equal parts butter and flour. So we're going to start with 1/3 cup or a half a stick of butter. And I realized I didn't turn on my heat. So I'm going to turn on my heat and let this butter melt. Once that butter is melted, I'm going to go ahead and put in our flour. Again, it's 1/3 cup. We are going to use our rubber spatula again. This will help protect your non-stick pot. And it's also really flexible, so you can really scrape the bottom of your pot without worrying about scratching it. And it has those little slits in it that will allow the sauce to, sift through and help you with the stirring process later on. So when you get that roux mixed in together, and once it's mixed in together, we want to let it cook for about 60 to 90 seconds over medium heat. And this is about what it should look like about 60 to 90 seconds later. At this point, we are ready for our milk. Go ahead and add our milk. And it's going to look like this is really too thin. Like all that roux is just absolutely gone. And that is not the case. As soon as this cooks, it's going to really thicken up. So we're going to raise the heat a little bit and bring this to a boil. Now this is literally like 90 seconds later. Look how thick this got. So obviously that is way too thick for the sauce we're making. So I'm going to add some more milk to help thin this out, because we're going to be adding another thickening agent later. So at this point you want your sauce to look nice and thin, not really thick. So after a couple minutes more of cooking, this is what we have. And this is still, it may not look like it, but this is still just a little too thick. So we're going to add some more milk and continue to stir. We want this just a little thinner than that. Now that's about what we're looking for. Yeah, it's nice and thin and kind of drips right off the spatula. That's about the consistency that we want. So now we're going to go ahead and add our garlic. Cool little trick
our roasted garlic. We're just going to squeeze the bottom of it, and the garlic cloves should just pop right out. Be careful when you're doing this, when you're squeezing it, that none of the coatings of those garlic bulbs get in there, because every once in a while they might slip out and you don't want that rough texture in your sauce. So if you want to see this in a little more ASMR kind of deal, here's what it looks like from the top. Kind of just squeeze it and it'll all just come right out. And just use your hands to place it into your garlic sauce. Go ahead and do this for as many bulbs that you roasted. Again, I roasted 6 bulbs, so it's up to you how much garlic flavor you want. I would say minimum of 5, but I probably wouldn't go more than 10, and it might be just a little overpowering at that point. So get all those into your sauce and give those a little stir in. And we're going to go ahead and add some seasoning with some pepper, some kosher salt, just a dash of cumin, and some paprika to help give it some color. Give that a stir in. Now I know you're thinking, well, Matt's too lumpy. You can't have just bulbs of garlic in there, and you are correct. That's why we are going to try my newest toy that I just added to my kitchen, an immersion blender. Plug that in and give that a good stir, and this will grind up all of that garlic and mix together your spices. And if you made it too thick of a roux by chance and you have any clumps of flour that are in there, this will definitely grind that up as well. Now you don't have to use an immersion blender if you don't have one. You could transfer this into a regular blender and blend it that way and then return to the pot. So you can see that will leave a lot of air bubbles into your sauce, but that's quite all right because we're going to cook this down just a little more. As you cook and stir this, those air bubbles will start to go away. So just make sure you're stirring it and checking to make sure you don't have any garlic cloves that did not get blended, because you don't want to serve a whole garlic clove. I mean, they taste fine when they're roasted. I've eaten them right out of the bulb before. That's how good they are. But for this sauce, we want to make sure it's nice and creamy. Now for our final thickening agent, we're going to add some grated Parmesan cheese. And we're just going to stir that in. That's why we wanted this thinner earlier, because this cheese is coming and it's going to thicken it up even more. So just continue to stir this until that cheese is melted. And once that cheese is melted, just leave that on low heat and simmer, and your sauce is done. Let's check in with our pork tenderloin. First thing you want to do is remove the cooking string. So very carefully slide your blade underneath, and always do it away from you. Cut the string away from your body. Don't want any slip ups and have that go right towards your body. Remove your string, and now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's see how good our inside looks. And of course, this probably happened to you too. Maybe not. Your end piece is gonna totally fall apart. But the inside looks cooked and beautiful and nicely packed. So we're gonna go ahead and make our little medallions out of this. If it falls apart a little bit on the seam where you folded it, it's all right. Just put it back together as you cut, and just go ahead and slice through your whole tenderloin, or you don't have to slice through the whole thing if you're not going to serve it all right away. Just save that for later and cut it up later. Nothing left to do now but to plate this up. Let's pick out, Jack Allen's serves you about 3 portions, or medallions I should say. So let's pick out 3 good ones and put it on our plate. Those 3 look like the best cuts. And now what we want to do is drizzle on our creamy roasted garlic sauce, just like that. And there you have it. There you have chorizo stuffed pork tenderloin with a roasted garlic cream sauce. But you guys know me, that's not enough sauce. I like all my food swimming in sauce. So before I try this, I'm gonna go ahead and do what I do, which is to drown all my food in sauce. Now, let's give it a try. See if these flavors came out that we were going for. See what our cross section looks like here. Good. chorizo is cooked well. That pork is cooked all the way through. Looks good. Let's give it a try. And delicious. Absolutely delicious. Excellent flavor.
All right, so we're all done. So there we had our pork tenderloin stuffed with chorizo in a creamy roasted garlic sauce. Came out better than I thought it would for my first attempt. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have to be honest with you guys. This was my second attempt. I tried to do it yesterday and I just messed it up so bad that I just could not air it. So I always tell you guys that, you know what, when I mess up, we're gonna work through it together. Not that time. I messed up the sauce, I messed up the rolling of the pork, and it just busted out and fell everywhere. So I had to go out and buy some new ingredients and try again. So I just want to be honest with you. But I did save the footage, and so maybe sometime in the future I'll release like a gag reel of bloopers or something like that, so you can see really how bad that actually did mess that up. But in the meantime, the question is it better than Jack Allen's? No! Theirs is better. I mean, as it should be. They've been making it for years. They pump those things out probably 50 times a night. So I would assume theirs is better. But you know what? For trying it for the first time, it came out great. And you could easily do it at home as well. So if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe down below. I really want to grow this channel so I can make this my full-time gig. Only way I could do that is from subscriptions and likes and views. So please subscribe below. It would help me out a lot. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, you can click here, or you can click right down there. I'm Tony Hickman for In Between Cuisine. I'll see you guys next time.